Are you the type of person who'd rather be curled up with a good book than making small talk at a networking event? Do you get sweaty palms just thinking about the phrase elevator pitch? Well, you're not alone. As an introvert myself, I totally get it. Traditional networking can suck the life out of you. It's awkward, forced, and sometimes it can feel as if you've suddenly been thrown into a human pinball machine, bouncing off people who seem to have it all figured out while you're just looking for the exit sign. But what if I told you that networking doesn't have to be your worst nightmare? In this video, I'm going to dismantle the myth that only extroverts can win at networking and arm you with strategies to help you overcome all your fears and become a networking god. Step 1 is obviously preparation. I can't stress enough how important it is to know the lay of the land before you step into a networking event. So do yourself a favor and make an agenda. Pinpoint the places you need to be and the times you need to be there. Trust me, it saves you from aimlessly wandering around and feeling lost and overwhelmed. Once you know what's happening, and when you can also decide which sessions or discussions align with your interests or career goals. If possible, get a list of attendees in advance. Now, this might sound like stalking, but it's not, I promise. It's just strategic planning. Look through the list and see who you'd like to connect with. Heck, be bold and set up some mini meetings or coffee chats ahead of the event. It takes the guesswork out of networking and turns it into a planned, productive exercise. Plus, it removes the intimidation factor because you're not going into conversations cold. Planning a few icebreakers in advance can also save you from those awkward moments of silence. And these don't have to be Nobel Prize-winning thoughts, okay? Simple questions like, what brought you to this event? Or, have you heard about the recent project Company X is working on? Can go a long way, because the point of an icebreaker isn't to show off how much you know. It's to kickstart a conversation that hopefully leads to a meaningful connection. The less awkward you feel at the beginning, the smoother the conversation will flow, trust me. But if you still feel like you won't be able to hold a conversation for too long, just be an active listener. Now, I know that being introverts, listening comes easy to us, but there's a huge difference between just listening and active listening. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who really listened to you, where they didn't peek at their phone or looked like their mind was on another planet? That's because true active listening is almost a skill set on its own, and it's a game changer in networking. So how do you become an active listener? Well, in simple terms, it means being present. You're not just there to respond, you're there to understand. Stop making up your next sentence in your head while the other person is still talking. Just listen. And it's not just about the ears. You've got to listen with your eyes too. Look out for those subtle body language cues. Is the person leaning in? Are they making hand gestures? These are nonverbal signals that can tell you a lot about what the person is really saying or how they're feeling. It helps you to engage more closely with what they're sharing. Oh, and a nod here, a slight hum there, and maintaining eye contact can go a long way. These minor interjections don't disturb the flow of conversation. Instead, they enhance it. They show that you're tuned in and you care about what the other person is saying. Another thing that can be super useful is shutting off your inner critic. Networking events can bring out the worst in your inner voice. You know, the one that says that you don't deserve to be in the room, tells you that you're not interesting enough for meaningful conversation, or that everyone's looking at you. First off, it's important to understand that we all have those thoughts sometimes. You're not alone, and you're not an outlier. But you've got to learn how to lower the volume on that negative chatter, or better yet, hit the mute button. Because you're at that event for a reason. Whether you were invited, bought a ticket, or are they representing your company, you have every right to be there. Remind yourself of that whenever the inner critic starts getting a bit too loud. And for what it's worth, most people are way too focused on themselves to be analyzing your every move. I mean, they're probably dealing with their own inner critics, or they're thinking about their own networking strategies, or whatever they're doing. Trust me, they're not scrutinizing you. My next tip would be to aim for the quality of connections over their quantity. One thing a lot of people get wrong about networking is that it's the number of people you meet. But I can tell you from experience that it's actually about the quality of the connections you make. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing inherently bad about meeting a lot of people. But the truth is, if you're focusing on racking up contacts rather than connecting on a deeper level, you're missing the point. The goal isn't to meet everyone in the room. It's to meet the right people for you and your career. Let's say you're at an event and you only make one meaningful connection, but it's with someone who genuinely resonates with your goals or values. That's a win. Now, that doesn't mean you should put yourself in a corner and only talk to one person all night. If you can interact with many people, that's great. But as an introvert, that might mean putting too much pressure on yourself. So the focus should always be on making strong, meaningful connections rather than superficial ones. It's also super important to honor the way you recharge. Networking events can be exhausting. Before you even step into the event, make sure you're fully charged, mentally and emotionally. Spend time doing what really recharges you. For me, it's reading a good book or maybe a long walk. For you, it could be listening to music or playing a video game. Whatever it is, trust me, going into the event fully recharged can make a world of difference in how you interact and connect with people. Now, this final tip is for after you've left the networking event. Over the next 2 to 3 days, take some time to follow up with the people who truly resonated with you. Don't rush into sending a generic, nice to meet you email. Make it personal. Mention a detail from your conversation or the advice they gave you. It takes just a minute more, but leaves a lasting impression. And hey, if you felt a genuine connection, why not suggest meeting up for coffee to continue the conversation? But pro tip, always give them an out. Remember, these are busy professionals you're dealing with, so be polite and let them know you'd value their time if they can spare it. So, did this video make networking look easier to you? Let me know in the comments. But that's all for today. See you in the next video.